You're listening to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based grief and loss podcast for Black women, where you will hear stories of miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility to learn there is a testimony in tragedy. You will learn how to heal, gain clarity, find hope and peace, and turn your pain into your purpose after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee.
Well, thank you so much, Joanna, for being on the podcast.
I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, well, I am a veterinarian by training, and I work as a freelance medical writer in Atlanta, Georgia. And my specialty with freelance medical writing is pet owner education. So most of my clients are websites such as PetMD and Pet Coach that publish pet owner education content.
Nice. So take us back on your journey to motherhood and share with us how that journey has been for you thus far.
Okay, so my journey, I'll say, started back in the spring of 2018. My husband and I have been married for about 5 years at that point, and that's when we decided that now was a good time for us and for our marriage to start a family. So we waited until the fall of 2018 to actually start trying. So in December of 2018, that's when I took my first pregnancy test, and it was positive. And it was quite a surprise because, you know, being that we are both in our late 30s, we figured that, you know, it may take a while. So we were prepared for this whole process to take months for me to get pregnant. So it was quite the pleasant surprise to see that it had happened so quickly. And so on the day that I found out that I was pregnant, I called the OBGYN office and they scheduled me for an ultrasound that very next day. So of course I was, you know, super excited. And so we get to the appointment and we do the ultrasound, and the nurse practitioner said that there was no fetal heartbeat. So that's when things really started to turn upside down for us, and for me especially. So the nurse practitioner advised me to get some more blood work done to look at my hormone levels and come back for a repeat ultrasound that next Friday. So, you know, this was I just felt like my world had turned upside down within about 24 hours. You know, I'm a type A personality, so I felt like I had all of my ducks in a row, you know, in terms of where I was in my life and marriage and business, like everything was lined up. So it just didn't seem real that this could be going wrong. So that week in between the first ultrasound and the second ultrasound, I just had so much anxiety. It was just like, what on earth is going on? I knew that women experienced miscarriages, but I didn't think that it would happen to me. So when I saw that it was happening to me, it just turned me around. I just didn't know how to react to this happening to me. But I managed to keep myself busy during that week. And my husband and I that week, we spent a lot of time just learning more about pregnancy to begin with, and, you know, different time points, like when is a fetal heartbeat supposed to even be detectable. So kind of learning more about, you know, time points in pregnancy and kind of understanding what it was all about in terms of the science kind of helped me keep, I guess, mentally distracted for that week in between the ultrasounds. And then so we went in for the second ultrasound, and there was still no fetal heartbeat. So at that point, the nurse practitioner said that, you know, it was confirmed that my pregnancy was not viable. So they scheduled me for a dilation and curettage procedure that following Monday. So all of this happened within about a week and a half of me first finding out I was pregnant to having the D&C. So last December was quite the emotional whirlwind for me. it was just, it really just flipped my world upside down. But I was so thankful that I had and still have, a very strong support system that, helped us move through, that difficult time. So after the DNC, my husband and I, we knew that we were going to try again. It wasn't even a question. And I was actually impatient to try again. So it took about 9 weeks after my DNC for me to begin cycling again. So starting in late February, we started to try again. And it took several months for me to become pregnant again. And looking back, even though, those couple of months, it seems short, but while I was going through it, it seemed like forever. And I was just, each month that I, got my period, it was just very frustrating. And then I felt like Mother Nature kind of was playing, a joke on me because I would get my period on, significant days for me. Like there was 1 month where my period started on the date that I had my DNC. And in May, my period started on Mother's Day. So, it was very difficult for me to month after month, see that I wasn't pregnant and then to have it happen on days where it just hit even harder that I wasn't pregnant, that I'd had a miscarriage. So, in all of those months, it felt like a balancing act of trying to process my grief while still having hope that I would get pregnant again. But what really helped me process my grief was that I was working with a maternal mental health therapist. And I had been working with her since about a couple of weeks before I had first found out I was pregnant. And I'm still going to see her now. And therapy has really helped me, process my grief, find healthy ways to grieve, while also, still taking care of myself and still having hope that, I will get pregnant again, that, my journey to being a mother is not over. So for anyone, who's listening, I would say, therapy works wonders if you're open to it. And I highly recommend seeing a therapist to help you, process all of your emotions as you progress through your journey to motherhood. So the second time that I found out I was pregnant was in July. It was actually a few days after Independence Day. And that was, of course, incredibly exciting. It was like, finally, I'm pregnant again. But then that excitement turned into anxiety about what if I miscarry again? So that anxiety was very strong for me. It was actually more powerful than the excitement I felt at being pregnant again. So it felt like another balancing act where, okay, how do I balance being excited, to be pregnant again, but also, still grieving my first miscarriage. And then now I have the anxiety of having a second miscarriage. So it was definitely, it was an emotionally, I'll say, a heavy burden. But again, through therapy and also, just talking with my husband, my mother, my support system, that really helped me kind of stay on an even keel, so that I wouldn't go, too far off the deep end and what my emotions were. So when we had our first appointment, after I found out I was pregnant, we did see a fetal heartbeat. So that was a huge sense of relief for us, that we crossed that hurdle that we didn't cross that first time. So that, helped me feel a little bit less anxious, that, okay, well, at least there's a heartbeat now. But I was still feeling anxious. And, after about another week or two, my husband, he helped me get over that hurdle of being anxious. So that's when I started to fully embrace being being pregnant again. I actually called it my second chance at a miracle. That's what I called my second pregnancy. So after I was able to fully embrace it and, acknowledge my anxiety, but not let it overtake me, I felt like I could actually really be excited and be all in. So, I was buying different, maternity clothes. I bought the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. I overhauled all of my cosmetics and natural products. I changed different parts of my diet. So I was doing all of these different, lifestyle changes to make sure that, I would have a healthy pregnancy, that I would be healthy. So then we had another appointment in mid-August. And I was almost 10 weeks pregnant at that point. And again, I had another miscarriage. So that was heartbreaking for me and for us. At the appointment, sitting in the doctor's office, it was just, I can't believe it happened again. And as we were kind of processing things while still at the doctor's office, I told my husband that I couldn't do this a third time, that I could not go through a third time of trying to conceive naturally. I knew that I didn't want to give up on becoming pregnant. It's just that I couldn't go through a third time of conceiving naturally and having, potentially having another miscarriage. So that day that we found out about the second miscarriage was very difficult. I remember when we were walking back to the car after the appointment, it was so hard to just put one foot in front of the other. It's like my body just couldn't do it. And I remember having a terrible headache that night, feeling sick to my stomach, just feeling physically so unwell. Just at the thought of having a second miscarriage. So since then, it's been a very, interesting couple of months. So as we are speaking now, I am in the midst of Ivf treatment. So that's the treatment that we decided to go with. So I have just completed about a week, my first week of injections. So this is very exciting, but it's definitely been a journey to get here. I'm glad that so far I'm feeling physically well with the injections. I wasn't sure how I would feel, but we feel fortunate that we have this opportunity available to us to go through IVF and give this a third try to become parents. So that's my journey.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. So right now you are in the process of extracting your eggs. You're in the first steps of the IVF process?
Yes. So my egg retrieval will happen sometime next week.
Awesome. So we will wish you luck and send you many prayers that you get all.
Thank you. I'll meet them. That's right.
If you're going to do a fresh transfer, are you going to wait till it gets to, was it day 5, the bio class? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to do a frozen transfer, and the reason we're going to do that is because we're going to be doing the pre-implantation genetic testing of the embryos to see if they are chromosomally normal or abnormal. After my second D&C, we had an analysis done of the products of conception, and the analysis showed that the embryo had several chromosomal abnormalities. There were 4 sets of chromosomes, 4 pairs of chromosomes that had an extra. So I have what was called quadruple trisomy. And with that, there's no way that the embryo would have been viable. There's no way I would have had a healthy full-term pregnancy. So with doing IVF, we decided to do that, what's called the PGT, to see, well, if I have chromosomally abnormal embryos, those, of course, will not be implanted because they won't be viable. But if I have some that are chromosomally normal, one of those can be implanted, and that will increase my chances of having a healthy pregnancy and reduce my chances of having another miscarriage.
Thank you so much for explaining that, because I think that a lot of people may not understand that part of the process, because, most people think that you extract the eggs, you create embryos, but you do have the ability to pay to get them tested out for that reason. So it's good. I'm happy that you all and the doctor and the team that you're working with recommended that. So that is exciting news. So definitely keep you all in prayer, because 2020 definitely seems like it's going to be definitely a change for you.
Right. Yes.
Awesome. So you mentioned therapy has helped you out throughout this process, throughout your 2 losses, and then now as you're going through IVF, do you continue? Do you think that you will continue therapy as you're going through your IVF journey?
Oh, absolutely. It's funny that you ask that, because I've actually been in therapy for several years. I've been in individual therapy, and also my husband and I, we have done couples therapy for several years now. So I am a major, proponent of therapy, and I don't see it as necessarily something that you stop, that you reach an endpoint for, because, life always happens. Life is always going to throw something at you. So to me, therapy is something that I always want to have in my back pocket as, a resource, as a tool that I can use to help me manage, what life has thrown at me. So I am definitely going to be continuing, therapy through IVF. And to me, I don't really see it as a stopping point, because, if IVF is successful and I become pregnant, and stay pregnant, fingers crossed, well, I'll still need therapy to work through processing IVF. And now, just working through, my pregnancy and becoming a mother. And if IVF is not successful the first time, and maybe we have to go through a second round, well, also processing that. So to me, there's really not a stopping point. It may be less frequent, but it's definitely something that I'm going to continue.
Yes. So I love therapy, and I'm so happy that you mentioned that as a resource for you that's helped you really on your healing journey, and then also definitely going through IVF. Are there any other tools or resources that you have used to help you out on this journey?
Yes. So one, I did read a book after my second miscarriage, and it's a book called Coping with Infertility, Miscarriage, and Neonatal Loss. And the author is Amy Wenzel. Her last name is spelled Wenzel. And I really liked this book because it provided, practical tips on one, like how to process your loss, like in those first couple of days, the first couple of weeks when it's more, acute. But then also, after you get past that acute phase of the loss, what are ways that you can, take care of yourself and still continue to move forward with life, just in general after those, first few weeks. So I really liked that it was very practical. It gave very practical strategies about really just how to take care of yourself, how to take care of yourself physically, how to take care of yourself emotionally, and also, how to, manage your relationships, essentially. So, not just your marriage, but also, well, how do you deal with maybe your coworkers or your friends or maybe your family members? Because something that the book emphasizes that, your loss affects more than just you, affects more than just you and your partner. It can also affect, your siblings who maybe were looking forward to being an aunt or an uncle, or maybe your parents who were looking forward to becoming grandparents, or your friends who are super happy for you. So, just learning how to navigate life in a healthy way that, honors your loss, but still, encourages you to move forward and still have a fulfilling life. So, so that book was super helpful. Therapy, super helpful, but also self-care. So, I've joked with my husband, especially right now, that I'm team me. I'm team me right now because my self-care is just so important, going through the IVF process, especially about making sure that your stress levels are low, that you're, sleeping well, that, you're eating a good diet. So all of those things that, encompass taking care of yourself. So, through therapy, I've been able to identify several types of self-care that have really helped me, cope with the losses, but also just take care of myself physically and emotionally. So some of the things that I do for self-care, I write in my journal. I usually write about once a week, maybe twice a week if I'm lucky. I also do yoga a couple of times a week. I work out with a trainer once a week. I play in a local orchestra. I love music, so that's been something that's been a part of my life since I was in the first grade. So that, has helped me, still engage with my friends, in a social setting. So, sometimes I'll go out on walks just to get fresh air. I'll stay, of course, connected with my husband because, this was his loss too. It's not just mine. So, part of my self-care is making sure that, my marriage is in a good place. So he and I are very intentional about staying connected to each other and just doing things, that bring us joy. So essentially, I like to keep a few self-care strategies just in my back pocket that I can pull out on any given day to make sure that I'm really taking care of myself.
I love that you said self-care. Self-care is something that we all have to practice.
Yes, it's so important.
So important. So I would love for you to leave the listeners some encouraging words, those who have gone through a miscarriage or any other kind of loss. And then those women who are battling infertility and may be going through an IVF journey very similar to you. What encouraging words can you leave with them?
I would say, for one, give yourself grace. Your body, your emotions have gone through so much with being pregnant or trying to become pregnant. All those obstacles that we can face along our fertility journey, we can become hard on ourselves because it's like, why is my body not working like it's supposed to? Like, I'm a woman, I'm supposed to be able to be pregnant and give birth. Why is my body betraying me? And I felt that on any number of occasions. But with all of that, giving yourself grace to go through all of the, the emotional gamut, sadness, if you feel, empty, if you're feeling angry, if you want to cry, if you want to scream, give yourself grace to feel what you need to feel to help yourself process that loss. Give yourself grace and do not judge yourself. Do not feel ashamed. It just comes back to being graceful with yourself and allowing yourself to just feel what you need to feel and process what you need to process. So in addition to giving yourself grace, allow yourself to cry. It's okay to cry. And I'm saying that because that's something that I needed to work through. Before my first miscarriage, I associated crying with weakness. So that's one of the first things I actually really worked on with my therapist was redefining strength. And now I see strength as being a willingness to be vulnerable and not being afraid to cry. So crying is very cathartic. And even if you feel like you need to cry in public, that's okay. I think and that also comes back to just giving yourself grace to feel what you need to feel. And if you need to cry in that moment, then cry. It's completely okay.
I love that. I love that you do have to learn just how to cry and just let it out, because you feel so much better after you do so, after you get it out. And sometimes,
even if it's just a few minutes, it's like, poof, okay, now I can breathe and kind of reset myself.
Right. Let me reset myself. Let me get myself together and keep it moving and doing what I need to do. But yes, I love that.
Yes.
And then grace, we always need to give ourselves grace. Grace is always needed on this journey. So thank you so much, Joanna.
I'm sorry, Erica. I thought of one more thing. Okay. I would say use your support system. Have people around you that will give you positive energy, that will not stress you out, that will be thinking of you and checking on you and praying for you and, will spend time with you. Those are the people that you need in your circle, to help you, even if they haven't experienced, a reproductive loss. Even if that hasn't been their life story, they can still provide you with support and even just a listening ear. So definitely have a strong support system around you, because you're going to need some propping up through this process.
Yes. Yes. I'm just thinking oh my gosh, we all need that, and definitely we do during that journey. Even afterwards, even during, once we do have children. So I love that you thought about that as well. So thank you so much, Joanna, for sharing your story, and we will keep you lifted in prayer as you go on through this IVF journey. And we would love to have you come back and share more about that journey as well, because I'm sure you're going to learn so much more along the way. So
yes, well, I'd love to. So just let me know. I'd be happy to give an update later on.
Absolutely. So where can we connect with you after this episode?
Let's see. Well, I am on Instagram. I'm fairly new to Instagram, so I'm not always sure of the terminology to use. But on Instagram, I am at JoannaD as in dog, V as in Victor, M as in Mary. So it's at Joanna DVM.
Awesome. And we'll make sure we link that in the show notes so everyone can definitely go follow you after this episode airs. Thank you again, Joanna, for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Erica. It's definitely been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. For show notes and more information on today's guest, go to sistersinloss.com. If you have not joined our online community, go to sistersinloss.com, as well as sign up for our newsletter. We want you to be a part of the community so you can know all of the events that we have planned on as Sisters in Loss. Go to sistersinloss.com, sign up for our newsletter, join our online community, and stay connected with us. Talk to you soon.